Okay, well, welcome everybody. Sorry we're running a little bit late. I think you've learned by now that we're dealing with technology, everybody in different ways, including folks who are willing to join us in any way, shape, or form by car, just to make sure that we are able to pull off what we're trying to do here. We're really excited. I think yesterday, all of those sessions, as I heard several people say at the end of the day, I'm still excited. It's the end of the day. I should be tired, but I'm really excited. We're gonna have the same sort of day today. I can feel it already. I'm gonna turn it over to Don Yazzie just to get us started, and then I'll get introductions going and get this plenary started. So Don, do you wanna start?
Yes, thank you, Neil. Welcome, everyone. Happy to see everyone today. I wish I could see each and every one of you. I'll see you later in sessions. So we'll just start with a land acknowledgement this morning and just looking outside and looking at the sky, looking at the trees, the mountains, look out your window. And if you have wind, if you have clouds, just acknowledging that all of these places are places where traditional offerings and prayers were done for many Indigenous people across this country. And they are still there today, and Indigenous peoples today still provide offerings to these places. Even if there's buildings and pavement over them, there's still offerings done there. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I'll hand it back to Neil really quickly too, just to, we got some wonderful people for our panel, and we do have Jessica Neimi, who is a wonderful consultant working in a tribal community for many, many years. And we just wanted to acknowledge and also state, just thinking about equity, that most of the field of infant mental health are white women, and most of the field of infant early child mental health consultants are also white women. So we know that, in the immediate, that we're going to have a workforce hopefully reaching out to tribal nations, and we would love to figure out how to support and, connect folks, even if the consultants are not of the community, then how do we grow, more, and how do we support? So I just want to state that as well. So thank you so much for being here. Go ahead, Neil.
Thanks, Donna. It's a good sort of segue for me. I'm Neal Horen, the director of the Center of Excellence for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation, and I've had the joy of working in a small number, maybe 30 tribal nations, and on one of the first trips I ever took to a tribal nation, we spent a long weekend with tribal elders sort of instructing us on child development and other issues. And I came back and I called some colleagues from another tribal nation that I'd worked with. And I said, I can't believe, and I'm really excited. And she said, I want you to calm down and recognize that we've been doing this work for 10,000 years. So as a white guy who's really excited, just pull it back just a second here and remember that what you're all excited about is something we've known about way longer than you putting some words and fancy diagrams together. And really sort of reminded me, humble, it's not necessarily my strength, as Dawn and my colleagues know, but it really reminded me that this part of the work within tribal nations is so critical, because we can't just apply a Western lens. And yet, as Dawn said, sometimes that's exactly what we're doing, and other times we're trying to learn. And that's what this plenary is really all about, is really hearing from folks about what this work looks like within tribal nations. And so I just want to start, maybe we can have each of you, I'll call, make it just go a little faster, just a quick introduction about who you are, where you're working, and what your work is in relation to mental health consultation. So Don, you work with us at Georgetown. I'm going to leave you for last. I'll start with Deb, and then we'll go to Byrde and then to Jessica. So Deb, you want to do just a quick introduction, please?
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name's Debra Benalli. I go by Deb. I also have another nickname, which will confuse everyone. It's Yazzie, but that's Dawn's last name. So, but you can call me Yazzie if you want to. That's my nickname. And I live in New Mexico. Point of interest, I think, for everyone is that there are 21 tribal nations in the state of New Mexico. And I work in Colorado in the San Luis Valley as an early childhood mental health consultant. And I was married into the Tachitni clan in Navajo. So Byrde and Dawn already know how I am related to them. And Fire and Sun clan from Jemez Pueblo. So good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
We are honored to have you and really appreciate your time. I'm going to move to Byrde next, please.
Okay, well, good morning, Yat Ebene, in my language. It's respectful of us to acknowledge ourselves using our clanship. And so I'll begin in that way. Yat She'e Byrde Nezi Nishyedo Tachitni Nishle, Don or Deb. Tachitni Nishleto Tsitna Jini Bashichin, Ato Ashihita Shiche in the Totsohin the Shinelle, Ato Sidito, Holiede, eight Ayisi Nashado, a Adishinan Nishla, Di Elchinayaje, a Shinanish, Yo Ilento Bashil Hujon Ko Hehet in Chicago. So really just to get you all in the loop, I introduced myself, my name, my clanship, and my relations, an invitation to those that I'm related to. And so when I introduce myself, I really just break down those barriers and recognize those that are far away. Deb included, her husband is now considered my older brother. Shana, he is my older brother. So that's really how it works. I come from a very small community on the Navajo Reservation called Bird Springs, no relation to my name. Very small that even Google Maps can't find us. So we're pretty good here. I work as a mental health consultant with Southwest Human Development. I've been here for about, I want to say nearing 4 years. Coming from education and nursing background. And I'll get more into that when we begin the panel. So thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be here with you all. And I am definitely excited.
Thank you, Byrde. All right, Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Neimi. I'm in northern Minnesota. And I told the group I'm a white woman providing consultation services with many tribal communities in northern Minnesota. I've been doing it for a little over 20 years now. Started out as a clinician working with young children and families, and found myself also wanting to work with early childhood professionals, professionals who are touching the lives of young children and families. And it's been wonderful. And I don't do this work alone. I always have a partner from the community who works with me, and also to build sustainability, been able to support many who go out and do reflective and consultation work. So it's been a wonderful experience. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Jessica. And thanks for not driving while you're doing a plenary. That'll be a different session, driving while doing a plenary. But
I've learned flexibility being a consultant, so now I'm practicing it too.
I love it. That's perfect. And then somebody who I've learned a tremendous amount from over the years, and lucky to call a colleague at Georgetown with me and on the Center of Excellence, Dawn.
Hi, everyone. I think you know me here on the panel. I work most of my hours as an early childhood mental health consultant on the ground of the Navajo Nation, working for the same program that Byrde mentioned earlier, Smart Support with Southwest Human Development. And come this July, it'll be 7 years I've been doing that, and really enjoy the work, still learning new things, lots of reminders, and being a consultant, always stepping back, stopping ourselves, pausing, needing to do a lot of that all the time. And then I do have some hours with Georgetown University on a couple of TA centers with the COE for IECMHC, and also the other TA center with infant early child mental health. So just happy to be here with you all. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks all, and really appreciate folks being here. So I want to start with a simple question, because I feel like the rest of this is pretty complex, and maybe this isn't so simple, but what sort of drew you into mental health consultation? How did you sort of get to where you are in this work? So and all of you can answer one. I sort of leave that open if folks want to sort of tell their story about this.
Well, Neal, I'll go ahead and start.
Thanks, Byrde.
Like I mentioned during my intro, I was one of those, overachievers, wanted to graduate college right away, and dove right into it. My first college undergraduate degree was in education. And I thought, I want to be a teacher. That's my goal. I want to be a teacher and retire as a teacher. And so I began in that field, and I ended up at a small reservation school. And I had some background in health. Had some experience, and the school didn't have a school nurse. And they were sending the kids to me. Kids, for example, kid fell off the monkey bars. Oh, go see, Miss Byrde. She can help you. And it's like, well, I don't know how to help. I can give a hug, and wipe off some tears, but really didn't have that clinical experience. And so it sort of just planted this thought, what about nursing? And so I was like, okay, let's give that a shot. Printed out the application, sent it in, got accepted, finished. Long story short. And so I made that detour into nursing. Found myself, doing a lot of clinical and eventually community health work. And so really, seeing the education side and the health side of our people really put me in this place of, you're seeing the manifestations of trauma. And how can you help? How can you help the young addict that comes into the emergency room every first of the month when the government checks are issued? How do you help the young child that's reading, at third grade level and they're in 8th grade? So you really see a lot of these things, and it really comes down to early childhood. And that was the turning point for me, really just the life experiences in the hospital, in the classroom, and in the community. So all roads led back to the importance of early childhood. And that's why I decided to take another detour. And I think that's what life is all about, is, detours, and you find your purpose, and you carry that passion with it. So.
Well, that's an awesome story. And I hesitate to say maybe it's not detours, just different paths that have led you to the right place and serving those children and families. So super grateful for your work. Anyone else want to sort of share?
Sure, I'll share. I fell into it. I've been doing it. It'll be 5 years in August. And I come from a clinical background. I'm a clinician licensed in New Mexico and Colorado in mental health and substance abuse. So, and my work in the tribal communities has always been from a clinical perspective. I was either a clinician or supervisor or, in tribal communities. And I was always the clinician that said, I don't want to work with a child that doesn't have reason and that can't talk. I don't want to do that. And I accidentally fell into this position 5 years ago, and it has been one of the most rewarding positions I've ever had. And like Byrde said, to be able to recognize the trauma links that come out and that happen in early childhood, and the difference that you can make at that level has been amazing to me. I've learned so much in this position. I'm so blessed to be able to do it. Because I was the clinician that ran from the room when you put someone under 5 on my caseload. I'm like, no way. But it's way different now, and I love it.
That's awesome. Although I'm wondering if anyone's going to have a direct path to being a mental health consultant. So my hopes resting on this easy glide into mental health consultation. I'm being facetious because I'm guessing, Jessica and Dawn, your stories are somewhat similar.
Jessica, go.
I one who really loved working with adults, and was drawn to that, but soon started to look around to notice who is caring for these children, who's helping implement the supports necessary for their healing and their growth and development, and started to find preschool teachers and nurses and of course caregivers, parents, and lots of professionals who are so critical to the development of children and families. And so my path was started out doing clinical work with young children, and then wanting to kind of look beyond that and support those that are really, really helping children grow and learn.
Great. All right. So Dawn, last but not least, how did you end up doing mental health consultation?
Gosh, I don't know. I'll tell the story and maybe you guys can tell me how I ended up doing this. I think I always did love children, but it was funny because I was thinking about what I wanted to do when I was, like in middle school. I was like, I want to be a paleontologist or a lawyer. That was my initial. So then, life happened. I became a really young mom, and those influences really changed me. And I said, okay, well, I want to help young children. I want to help, clinically. And so that was my degree. And early in my career, I did do clinical therapy. And I was so lucky to be paired with an infant toddler mental health specialist, an art therapist. And that was when I kind of started to see that, okay, but this symbolism and this work in infant mental health is really similar to like Navajo ways of seeing things. And then, graduated, went back to the reservation. No one was doing infant mental health. No one knew about it. To this day, I'm still working to push it out on the Navajo Nation. And, there's a lot of progress has been made. And when I came back to the reservation, I, again, similar to Byrde, started working for a small reservation school as a school counselor, and they had a residential dorm. So then I also was a residential counselor as well. And children 1st through 8th grade, and it was challenging in that just seeing the lack of service, the lack of support for parents, the structured, trained way that so many of us were educated in a BAA school or a BAE school, and seeing children as a problem if they had a behavior that was challenging. And really, looking at us as the adults, and then help to build a positive behavior support system at the school, and all of the training, and like learning something, practicing it 21 times before we get to hang on to it. So those different pyramid model stuff. And then I had mostly evening hours, so I wanted to work closer to home. So I found a job. I thought I was going to be doing early childhood mental health work in Navajo Head Start. Come to find out, I was the administrator of the whole mental health program, and had to all of a sudden change up contracts. And I looked to what works at Georgetown University website and used that to put into the contract. And so that's kind of how I think I found my way to this. And then I just felt like I burnt out. I felt like I wasn't being true to myself and my family, being in a helping role. So I left the field and went to administrative work, Navajo political work. And then I kind of found my way back and just thought, well, let me join this volunteer early childhood committee on the Navajo Nation. And it was through First Things First funding in Arizona. And this position opened up, and I guess no looking back now. So yeah, I think that's how I found my way here, but it's a good indirect service, and needing to know the political pieces on the ground are also important. And I think that's what helps me in the national work as well.
Great. So I'm hearing at least some similarity to what I think happens for most of the folks in the field. No one went to mental health consultation graduate school and became a mental health consultant. And I don't know that anybody listening, that's the path. I'm wondering though, in what you told him, Dawn, I might start with you. If you're seeing some specific things in working within tribal nations, and this will give you guys a few minutes to prepare, but anything that you would say when you're working in a tribal nation doing mental health consultation, here are the things that I bring to the table that I think folks need to be considerate of. I'm conscious that there are folks who are program managers. There's folks at a state or a tribal level like, well, we really want to do this work. What are some of the things that we should be thinking about? And that's a broad question, but you all have this experience working within tribal nations. What are some of the things that consultants need to really consider in that work?
I would say if they're, first things is try to find folks who are of the community. And if you can't find folks who are of the community, then, the folks who are going to be hired to support the community, to spend some time on the ground, spend some time in the community, spend some time at events, drive around, of course, with someone, not by yourself. Drive around with someone, get a partner, as Jessica shared, that, she has a partner with her when she goes and supports. And I guess someone who would be like a cultural liaison, a cultural support person, someone who's trusted in the community. And if it's a large community, you're probably going to have several that you reach out to, and, getting to know what is a lived experience that is so important. I think those would be some initial things, and just to be mindful of the history of tribal nations, looking up and researching. There's tons on the internet. Our COE website has information. Webinar 2 from the 2021 equity webinars on tribal nations, kind of just giving a snapshot of the history and context. Why are there urban Indian centers? There's a reason, and it's a dark reason behind it. That federal government tried to terminate all tribal status. So then they gave money to Chicago, Los Angeles, Denver, New York, to support the transition to assimilation. So, there are urban Indian centers in each major city. So there are tribal nations in each of your states out there. So I think those would be things to keep, to do the research, to partner, have lived experience on the ground, and to know that it is very different. It is very different. I can't define the edges, but, to have that patience and that willingness to support. Because I think too often, and it seems like it's happening more today, tribal nations are really affected by state and federal, programs at times, threatening to take away money, sometimes tribal consultation, just that word can seem like it have a negative connotation, only because sometimes that comes to the point of, well, we're going to take money away from you, or we're going to put a restriction on your funds, or so really coming with that mindset of, do tribes really trust, those entities that come in? So I think that's some for now. I have more, but I'll stop there.
No, that's a super helpful start, because I think you laid out, from my perspective, some of the positives about the cultural liaison. I heard several talk, and then sort of calling it out. There is a dark side that has led to where we are in terms of forced assimilation and things like that. So other folks with thoughts about some of the sort of considerations, and we'll dive a little deeper here in a sec, but anything that the rest of you would like to throw in?
Well, I guess I could piggyback on Dawn's statements there, and really looking at the depth of history in relation to the family dynamics, on our reservation. For example, when I started working among our centers, I've learned that the majority of our young children are housed and raised in multi-generational homes. A lot of them are, they're exposed to what their grandparents and their great-grandparents have gone through, and they carry a lot of those experiences with them. And not only the children, but the early childcare staff as well. So, for example, one of my earliest experiences, I want to say probably my first center that I went to visit in person, I noticed the majority of the childcare workers were older, and and so as I got to know them, you kind of have an idea of which era they grew up in, okay, 1940s, 1950s, and you go back to that era and you remember, okay, well, 1940, that was, at the tipping point of the boarding school experience. The boarding school experience was inhumane, in an inhumane era where, the forced removal, and you're in this military style environment, and you come home with that, and you carry a lot of those teachings, those habits, you carry them with you. And so what I saw in these centers were similar to their upbringing. They were very, some of the childcare workers were a little on the harsh side, I thought, and you have to go back and remember, well, that was how they were taught. That was how they were sort of fashioned. And so, I think that really history for tribal communities is very important. And family dynamics, we are at a place now, like I mentioned, the multi-generational homes, and a lot of differences surrounding that, where the child is not only cared for by the parent, but aunt and uncle and grandparents and even cousins. So the expansion of caring for a child is it's pretty big, it's pretty vast, and that's to our benefit. So
yeah, Byrde, it sort of strikes me as I'm listening, and I'm aware that there's some background noise. I was worried it was going to be here. I'm glad other people have background noise and things like that. Let's focus, because I think what I'm hearing are the kinds of things that can be super helpful. And I'm struck by what you said, Byrde, because as Dawn said, yes, there's lots of history and you can go on the internet. I'm thinking, that's all I'm going to get, though, is what I can look up or read. And it's not from my multi-generational family that has grown up there. And so what a challenge it would be for a non-native person to try and do that. So this idea, I think, Dawn, you laid out, Jessica has talked a bit about that sort of cultural liaison to sort of help folks at least learn, if you are not of that tribal nation. So that's really helpful, insightful information, I think, for folks. So I don't know, Jessica, Deb, anything else you want to throw in before I move on?
I kind of wanted to throw in, Dawn had mentioned patience, having patience. And when I did my intro, I mentioned that there are 21 different tribal nations in the state of New Mexico. And I said that for a reason, because that means there are 21 different cultures. Similarities, yes. Differences, yes. Different languages, yes. Different culture, yes. Different dances, yes. And you have to, when you go in to any one of those nations, understand what that culture means and what that looks like to them. So yes, to have the patience to be willing to stand and beside someone and allow that to happen.
You know, it reminds me, Deb, I know in discussions prior to this, talking a little bit about the consultative stance and about when you talk about patience, I always think, you know, of the consultative stance. Shameless plug, Khadijah Johnson, great book. You know, is there something about that that really is, I'm going to say different. I don't know if that's the right word. And then Jessica, I might come to you after as you talk about how you've been doing this work for so long. But Deb, anything about the way in which you even think about that consultative stance that maybe is a little bit different?
Phil Lane Jr. put together the building blocks of Native American communities. And when I read that, and because I've used it before as part of a presentation, it is the consultative stance. Everything about those building blocks in that community is right from, I mean, and the building blocks were there first for centuries. They were there. So I don't even know if I answered the question.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if folks felt like you did.
But to me, when I look at the cultural foundations of tribal communities, it is the consultative stance.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it any more than that. It's the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's super. No, I'm with you. Jessica, any thoughts about that?
One thing that came to mind is everyone was sharing the word invitation. And as a consultant, I never went bounding into any professional organization or community suggesting that you should do this. This is great. I'm so helpful. It's about waiting for an invitation for each relationship, each group. Earlier I was sharing a story about a grandmother that I worked with. I worked with her grandson, and she came in for some clinical supports for him. He was struggling. And the more we built a relationship, the more she offered invitations to different venues, including consultation. She happened to work for the school on the side and said, "This lady, you should come with me to school someday, and we should talk to the teachers. They're burnt out." And so I continue to remind myself I'm a guest in each relationship, in each community. And patience is a big piece of that, but waiting for that invitation has been really valuable.
I'm hearing a lot of consistency in this. We have a couple of questions from folks in the audience. I'm gonna come to you as quickly as I can, but it sort of makes me wonder a little bit about how to maintain traditional tribal practices in the work that y'all are doing. And you sort of already talked about this a bit in terms of sort of waiting for that invitation, but I wonder if there are other concrete examples, Dawn or Byrde, if you have a couple of examples you might be able to share. All right, Byrde, I think she's pointing to you. The way it looks on my screen, she's pointing to you. I don't know if that's the way.
Okay. Well, you know, sort of sharing a little more about me and my history. My parents were young parents, and so they had to finish high school, and I was raised under the care of my great-grandparents and grandparents. And that was a blessing, you know, because I was taught how to speak our language from birth, and English was not my first language. And so fast forward, you know, in my experience and my role as a mental health consultant, I'm able to use our language and our philosophies as I learned back then in the teachings and the presentations in the consultative stance. And, you know, the power of relationships, like, you know, the others on the panel mentioned, is so powerful for tribal communities. You know, going back to my introduction, you know, that's sort of when I shared my planship, that's relationship building, you know. And so I found that the more I'm able to speak and converse with early childcare workers in my sites, that relationship just expanded. You know, it really grew because I was able to relate, you know. And so with that, I felt that, you know, okay, well, let me, you know, go into professional development, you know, because that's a lot of what we do as well. And so I started, you know, incorporating a lot of our own culture in the professional development opportunities. And, you know, a lot of professional development in early childcare is not culturally minded, you know, the theories and all of that, that come, you know, from way back around early childcare, Piaget and all of that. And so, you know, it's like, okay, well, let me modify this to where I can make it relatable and, you know, helpful in terms of bridging culture and theories to allow for a better understanding of early childhood. And, you know, it's pretty remarkable when you see that. You know, it's pretty remarkable when you finally can see that, hey, the childcare worker now understands it. They're putting the puzzles together. Maybe it was just that language barrier, you know, maybe it was just that literacy that they couldn't understand because it was too far-fetched for them, you know. Let me put it in our terms and let's see what happens. So that is one practice that I think we pride ourselves on, Dawn and I.
Yeah, Don, I'm gonna turn to you, but I will say, in listening to all of you describe this, it feels to me, and maybe to others, like it's, yeah, mental health consultation is really complex, and the consultative stance involves a great deal in terms of that relationship. And now we're putting something on top of that or underneath it maybe, but there's like a whole other piece here in working within tribal nations that sort of is an added piece. And a lot of the questions we're getting, and I'll just give you a preview, are really about how do we build those relationships? Are there systemic efforts to build the workforce and things? So I think what you're laying out are the seeds for folks to start to say, so now what do I do when I get back? How do I do this? So I just want to throw that out there for you to start sort of thinking about. Don, I'll share the question again, because you know how much I like to hear my own voice. But so the question was really about how do you sort of maintain those traditional tribal practices? What have you found that's been helpful?
Each tribe is different, we know, and yes, there are similarities. And we know that each tribe is affected by historical trauma and resilience. I'll always pair those together. If there was only trauma, then none of us would be here. So we know that there is resilience. So depending on, you know, how each tribal nation is, because I know I worked with some where they felt like we hardly have any of our practices left, but we want to learn more. And I've heard of some tribes going to the Western tribes, you know, who, you know, didn't get the onslaught in 1600s so much by, you know, colonization, but, you know, we were affected by Spaniards. But what some of them have done is search and look for, you know, practices and ways that they believed were very similar to what, you know, their ancestors used to do from research they've done. And, you know, even to this day, I was not raised in this traditional way. I had to learn on my own after I became an adult. I had to learn on my own after I became a mother, and I am still actively learning. So when I had started to learn more and more about what consultation is and my own culture, you know, at the same time, I was like, this is the same thing. You know, I knew this much about my culture, but as I learned more, each of them in depth. It is the same thing. And our definition of consultation and infant mental health is so much more inclusive and expansive to include the universe, the stars, the planets, equinox, solstices, just every energy that is out there is what is included in our definition of infant mental health. And healing and spirituality also includes attachment. So, to think about how can we capture, reclaim this, I feel like consultation and infant mental health perspectives is one way, one door opening to reclaim our traditional practices. What our spirit unknowingly knows has been there for thousands of years, right? That's what I feel like we can do. To build relationships, I'm looking at the questions here. Yes, the tribal nations do get some money for mental health, but not enough. There's a huge workforce shortages in all of Indian country. And a lot of times the money is sent with, specific parameters. And a lot of what I've run into just on the ground here is that the money is for substance use. So for me, I get my little activist hat on, my advocacy part is like, well, why are they only giving us money for substance use? Do they still think of us as drunken Indians? It upsets me when I think about some of those parameters that are set and the way that funding comes down. So, but we've made a lot of strides on the Navajo Nation and really pushing out what infant mental health is. So, just educating these partners and those that write the scopes of work, including infant mental health, including the whole family perspective, as opposed to just substance abuse 13 years old on up. Yes, that's a part of it. So there's Indian Health Services funding, yes. And then if states partner really closely with tribes, that can also be included. The state of Arizona, First Things First funding, puts money to Byrde physicians as infant early child mental health consultants through their tobacco tax dollars that they've, did a huge thing back in 2006, voting and everything. And, we're at this point today to be able to have this opportunity to be in the communities on the ground, providing this support. Then I see best way to reach out. Each tribal nation has their enrollment office or census office or roll number office. It's different among each tribe, but I would just start there and calling, just calling those offices, calling leadership offices, government, tribal government leadership offices. If you're looking to partner with in this work of IECMHC, then call the child care centers or Head Start centers. A lot of tribes do have Head Start funding and CCDF funds, and calling them and seeing where can we meet? I want to learn more, and just coming with that humble, coming with humility and that I don't know much. I would like to learn more. Can you, can we agree to go into a relationship together just for me to learn? And I want to bring resources, and how is it best to do it, with your community? So that's, lived experience. Yes.
So Dawn, I'm going to jump in because I love that you're answering questions that are coming in, and there's one that sort of pulls this together a little bit in some ways, that is about sort of, is there a systemic way in which we're developing the workforce? I sort of think about as Jessica's doing this work, are there 5 other people that are being brought in? As Deb's doing this work, are there 3 people who are being trained as consultants? Are there 20 more consultants for Navajo Nation, for an entire, essentially, country? It's a country. If we, for folks to think a tribal nation is a government to government relation with us. How are we building up a workforce? It's great to have all of you here, and I'm sure you'll get plenty of job offers from the plenary, but are there other folks? Is there a pipeline? Do you have other folks that you're bringing along who are tribal members in particular, so that we're building an appropriate workforce and an equitable workforce? I don't know who wants to take that. That was a 16-part question with no easy answer, I don't think. So it's easy for me to ask the questions because I don't know that there's an answer. So who wants to take first crack at that one?
I'll jump in really quickly. Just on the ground, I always recruit teachers. You should become an early childhood. I do that. And then, going up the pipeline, 30,000-foot view, I know with the Consultation Council, Neal, that we have with our center, and just thinking about tribal nations, and I know 0 to 3, just putting feelers out there and constantly, we feel invisible, we're unseen, 2% of the population. So I think definitely we need to build a systemic, workforce pipeline. And with the Center of Excellence in supporting tribes to help them in their launch grant or iLaunch grant to build their own IECMHC workforce, it's a lot of, it's long-term work. However, it can be done. And, I'm working on efforts to, get into like the Indian Health Service, educating them, National Indian Health Board behavioral health folks. I have meetings set up with them in the future. So just, trying to reach out to these places and spaces where, they have a wide reach. What I've noticed so far is in most Indian Health Service funding streams for most tribal nations, not every tribal nation, for most tribal nations, there's no knowledge of infant mental health. And more it's coming up, which is great, but there's no system yet. Sorry, I'll stop there.
It's all good. We've also made all our West Coast friends get up way too early and not let them just get coffee and ease into the day. So I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Other thoughts that y'all have?
I was going to jump in and kind of piggyback off of Dawn, the same thing. Where I work now, we're 2 mental health consultants short. So we can't even fill the positions that we have in the San Luis Valley. And I'm 9 miles down the road from Jemez Pueblo. And I know for a fact they don't have a mental health consultant, because when I worked there, they pulled their consultant for their Head Start from the Behavioral Health Center, and they don't have enough clinicians to be able to even do that now. So they have nobody going into their Head Start. So Dawn's just given me a great idea to contact tribal government and see where I can start with maybe planting some seeds. So
Great.
Yeah, the system's just not there. We've got to figure out how to build it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jessica, any thoughts? You've been doing this for, I don't know how you've been doing this for a while, because you must have started when you were 10, but how any thoughts about sort of how we get this system moving forward?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to learn about mental health consultation is to be a consultee, to participate in the process. And that's certainly one of the best ways I learned. And then have a mentor who can guide you along. But actually participating in consultation, you start to kind of learn the rhythm, the questions, how to be reflective. And I've seen many people get excited about and feel really comfortable and skilled in that area and want to pursue this. And it seems very simple, but things like taking on an intern or a community professional from a variety of qualifications and offering to support them. If you want to try this out, I'll meet with you. We can talk about how it's going. And I see that as part of our duty as consultants as well, is to support others who are interested in this.
Great. Dawn?
I'm also trying to recruit our person who is going to do our mindfulness moment.
So good sneak preview in about 5 minutes, where we are going to end this session with a nice, strong wellness activity from Didi. And it sounds like Dawn is already actively recruiting Didi away from whatever job Didi currently has, which I love. Good for us. Hi, Didi. Thanks. We'll give us another 5 minutes, because I think folks have lots of questions here. And I just want to sort of come back to sort of pull this together a little bit. We're getting a lot of questions around if we're not working within tribal nations, but we're working very rural, isolated places with a lack of professionals, is it similar? And I'd like to hear a little bit about how maybe it is, but I'm guessing there's some very specific things that you've all laid out about working within tribal nations. And Dawn, maybe we can come back to sort of the dark side. I don't want to end on the dark side, but I think we have to acknowledge that one of the reasons we are in the space that we're in, talking about the lack of the workforce or where we're at is because of some of the dark history that you mentioned. And I wonder if there's some takeaways from that might fuel our growth in the field in terms of addressing the needs of tribal nations. That's I think it's a hard question. Maybe it's not, but I'm going to start with you, because you can just yell at me in our next meeting, and other people, they may not yell at me, but go ahead.
That's a loaded question. Well, I'll answer kind of similar to how I answered yesterday. In the challenge of a pandemic, we know that all of our strengths and weaknesses have been amplified. And as a consultant, we know that we have this consultative stance of holding hope. And in traditional Navajo's perspective, anything is possible. Anything can be fixed. Anything can be restored and brought to harmony. So very similar. So I would say that, yeah, there's that dark side, but again, each one of us as Indigenous people are still here today. That means there's tons of resilience. And when you have challenges, and everyone probably, knows this in their own life, if you have a challenge in life, you somehow push through and you find and become you're stronger on the other side. So with this dark history, I would encourage everyone to relearn history. Unfortunately, those with power write history, relearn history. All of, everything that has happened from 1492 to, current, it's all in case law. Tribal nations are highly regulated people, thousands and thousands of case law and, statutes and, all kinds of laws regulating things that we did, because the ultimate goal was to wipe out 100% of the population. We're 2% now. It's not successful. So, that's what I would encourage everyone is to remember there's always resilience in all of this, all of these challenges. When I come to families sometimes and, they need support for their little one in the classroom, family agrees. And I find the situation that just seems really hard. They have tons of strengths in that family. One person's substance use, another person's not taking their medication for a mental health disorder. There's still strengths in those families. It can be found, and we have to train ourselves to look for those strengths, train ourselves. It's similarly, parallel process. Let's look for the strengths in the community. Let's look for the strengths in the systems that we have. They're there. We just have to build these relationships also on these levels and make these connections, bridge these gaps. So I think that's kind of how I would answer that question, Neal.
Thanks, Donna. I appreciate it. Byrde, any thoughts, maybe takeaways, like here's something that you all need to think. I don't know how many people are on. I like to guess 4 million, but I'm guessing I might be a little bit off, but there's people listening. What's a sort of takeaway that you would want folks to sort of leave this discussion with?
Well, my grandfather was a traditional medicine man. And, he was born in the 1920s. And so he lived a life of hardship, many afflictions, but he survived. And I was able to hear, I was the one that sat on his lap and I would ask questions. And I really gained a different perspective of what we went through as a people. And so on his on his deathbed, he had lung cancer from a chemical spill that occurred years ago in the river that we live nearby. And so on his deathbed, his final wishes, he said, "Remember the children." And it's like, why? Why was that his final instruction? And I think about it, you ponder your own childhood, current events, and it's, really our longevity as a people comes down to the children. And you think, when I was born, my grandpa gave me a name, a traditional Navajo name. I was that special, when I first laughed, you know, as an infant, they celebrated me. I had a ginormous feast, you know, people from all the community came to celebrate me. And, you know, and that is really what we have to come down to, you know. And so my work as an early child mental health consultant, you know, I have so many people ask me, what do you do? You know, what do you do? And I have to be very transparent about my work. You know, this is what I do. And not only that is I have to take every opportunity that I have to promote this line of work, and really, you know, take it and share, you know, our children are valuable, our longevity, our, you know, our existence in generations to come is really in our hands, you know. So like I mentioned before, you know, it really does come down to the importance of relationships and, you know, the attachment and all of that. And, you know, it's really unique because, you know, when you come into this line of work, you read about it in journals and published publications. I heard it way back, you know, as a child. I already knew this, you know, and so now it's just putting the two together.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful words from your grandfather, really helpful words from you. Appreciate it. Jessica, any sort of last thought for folks?
No, I would just encourage those of you that are interested to take a risk and find someone to talk with about it. Be patient and humble, and the work will come your way.
Thanks. And Deb?
I think that Byrde and Dawn and Jessica have summed it up perfectly. So I'm good. Thank y'all.
So I know there's lots of questions, and I first want to thank Deb and Jessica, Byrde and Dawn. I know it's just a little taste, and I know in some ways it's made you sort of even more curious about, well, what about this? And what about this? We have at the Center of Excellence, you have an opportunity to reach out and get technical assistance. I love the encouragement that you've all given folks about take a chance, step out, begin a relationship. It is all about the children. And soon Didi will be working with us anyway, so she doesn't know that yet, but Dawn's about to make her mark, so you'll have more opportunities. Before I turn to Didi to close us out with a wellness activity, which is just super helpful. Lauren is going to help folks navigate to where they're going next. Is that right, Lauren?
No.
Okay, so Lauren just likes to show up in the middle of a plenary and make sure she's on camera because God forbid I get some time. But okay, go ahead, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. I can't let an opportunity pass to say thank you so incredibly much to this absolutely phenomenal panel. This heartfelt, beautiful. Thank you very much. Do you want to take another 10 seconds just to let everyone know, not about our next session, those are breakout workshops. Hopefully that is all very clear on your schedule. But after that, we will be going into what we are affectionately calling our coffee conversations. Many apologies, we do not actually have coffee unless you are able to scooch to a spot where you can get that for yourself. But we are really excited to offer some opportunities for you all to connect with peers, connect with those of us at the Center of Excellence. So the way you get connected to these is on the attendee Hub main page. There will be 5 different options for the different conversations to join. We are trying to make sure this is reflected in your schedule, but just in case that doesn't happen, want to let everyone know. So 1:55 Eastern, 10:55 Pacific. Make sure you go to the Attendee Hub main page to join one of those conversations. So from here, we have mindful moments, workshop, then coffee conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. as always, I smoothly mangled that completely, but I will do this better. So I'm going to turn it over to Didi for a mindful moment. And I'm going to read Didi's bio, if that's okay. Didi, I'm going to say your last name and then you're going to correct me. Didi Josea. Yes.
That's good.
So really 1 for 2 in this, right? I didn't know what Lauren was going to say, but I did get your last name right. So 1 for 2, which is a pretty good average for me. So Didi Josea is a medical social worker who's employed with the mental health department of, I'm going to say this one wrong. Tsehootsooi. Not even close, is it? Say it for me, Didi. Help me.
Tsehootsooi Medical Center.
Wow, I wasn't even close. So that's on the Navajo Nation. Can you say one more time? I just want to make sure I get it.
Tsehootsooi.
Tsehootsooi. Okay, Tsehootsooi Medical Center on the Navajo Nation. Didi earned her master's degree in clinical social work with a focus on substance abuse at Highlands University in New Mexico, and chose to stay in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a year to gain clinical experience as a postgraduate before moving back to the Navajo Nation. And throughout the pandemic, Didi's been highly involved in providing online trainings and presentations in the community while highlighting the importance of caring for our mental health at this time. She specializes in therapeutic services and assessments with adolescents and adults, while having a clinical interest in co-occurring mental health disorders, trauma, and substance abuse. She is especially passionate about therapeutically working with the Dene LGBTQ+ community so they can heal from trauma. And so it's why I read the bio, because I think it's just amazing work that you're doing, despite my mangling of yet another thing, now 1 for 3. But I'm really excited to have you close out this plenary with some real addressing of wellness. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Yat Bene, good morning. It is 10:30 here in Fort Defiance from the Navajo Nation. She'e Didi Josea Yanishia, Hanagafni Mishle, the Bethlejana Bashishchin, Torich Eatni, Dashachedo, Dakshanale. What I did there was introduce myself in my Dene language, the Navajo language. We introduce ourselves and identify ourselves with our 4 clans. Our first clan is who we are. So that's my mother's clan. My second clan is who I am born for, which is my father's clan. My third clan would be my maternal grandfather's clan. My fourth clan would be my paternal grandfather's clan. So I'm from Cross Canyon, Arizona, which is just a little small community in Navajo Nation. I moved back close to 4 years ago. Never lived on the res before, but I visited often, visited my grandparents here. Just enjoy, I love it out here. I do, despite having to drive on muddy roads and getting stuck, mud bogging. It's what I live for. It's amazing. Like he had mentioned, I'm a medical social worker. Actually met Yazzie through one of the many presentations I've done. So many thanks to her for inviting me today. I was able to kind of check in with some of the presentations so far, and holy cow, you guys are just amazing people. I commend you all for the work that you're doing. Seems like tough work, but I wanted to provide you guys with a meditation exercise today called a visual. It's a colored breathing exercise. It's a visualization technique. Since coming back to the Navajo Nation, I've seen how important culture, tradition has been. I've always grown up with a Western perspective. So coming home, I've had to really challenge myself to look through a traditional lens. I'm like Dawn, where I didn't grow up with the teachings. I grew up in a church more so. And since coming back, I've learned a lot. It's been wonderful so far being back. I'm actually going to share my screen. Is that doable? Because I have a PowerPoint here that I want to make sure, just something to bring up. Okay, let's see. Actually, I need to. How do I make my PowerPoint bigger?
I'm gonna guess hit like a big green button at the top left, but you really shouldn't rely on me. I can't even say the name.
Let's see. Maybe that's okay. Is that fine right there?
Yep. And then if you
All
hit that
right,
little-
awesome.
Good. There you go.
Okay, so benefits of color breathing, just very quickly to give you a rundown of why this is helpful. Improving relaxation, can improve sleep, provides us with just a general sense of well-being, also provides us some relief from emotional pain we may be experiencing, as well as physical pain we may be experiencing. So this is my way of supporting each of you in the work that you do in the community. So as we begin, go ahead and get in a comfortable position. I'm imagining all of us are sitting down. Go ahead and put your feet flat on the floor. Hands, place them wherever they may fall and feel comfortable. And as we begin, I'm going to ask that we place whatever we're working on aside for the moment. If we're working on a task right now, just put it aside and I promise you it'll be there when you open your eyes. If you trust me, go ahead and close your eyes. Be with me here in this space as we do this meditation. As we begin, I'm going to ask that each of you take 3 deep breaths before we begin the meditation. Deep inhale through our noses. Imagine your lungs filling up with air. And when you're ready to exhale, long breath out through your nose. Another deep inhale through your nose. Hold that breath. And when you are ready to exhale, long breath out through your mouth like you are blowing out of a straw. One more deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs with air, holding that breath, and when you are ready to exhale, long, slow breath out of your mouth. Go ahead and allow your breathing to return to normal, nice and calm. I want you to begin to think of your favorite place, a place that is calming, that is relaxing. Begin to fill this place with what you see. What's in that environment? What are the colors you see? Is there anyone else there with you? What are you hearing? What noises are in this favorite place of yours? What are some of the smells? Is there anything that you taste? Have you been eating or drinking anything in this favorite place of yours? And lastly, what do you feel? Whether it's a sensation on your skin, are your hands touching or holding anything? What about your feet? Is it a hard surface that they're on? Now that you have this favorite place in mind, I want you to pick one color that represents this favorite place of yours. With each inhale that you take, I want you to imagine this color beginning to fill up your body. And with each exhale, I want you to imagine exhaling stress, exhaling worry, negative thinking. We'll first begin with our feet as they are planted on the ground. As you inhale, I want you to imagine that color filling up your toes, moving throughout your feet, your heels, flowing up into your legs, passing your calves. That color swirling up, continuing up your legs, moving past your thighs. And remember, with each breath that you take in, more of that color is filling up your body. That color now swirling up into your stomach, moving around in your belly, up into your chest, filling up your heart, swirling around and moving into your shoulders. With every exhale that you take, blowing out that negative stress, negative self-talk, bringing your attention back to that color swirling into your shoulders and down both of your arms, going down past your elbows and beginning to move into both of your hands. That color swirling into your palms, filling each of your fingertips to the end. Bringing your awareness back to your shoulders as the color moves up into your throat. Begin swirling up into your head space, filling up your mouth. That color now swirling around your brain and into your ears. You can begin to feel that color at the tips of your ears. Now just sit here, take a moment, allow yourself to experience that color moving around, swirling around throughout your entire body. Each inhale brings more of that color into your body. Each exhale, breathing out stress. And as we bring the exercise to a close, I'm going to have us end with taking 3 deep breaths again. Big inhale through your nose, filling up your lungs. When you're ready to exhale, long, slow breath out through your mouth. Another breath in. Long breath out through your mouth. Last deep breath in through your nose. When you're ready to exhale, long breath out through your mouth. If your eyes are not open yet, go ahead and open them. Join me here in this moment again. I hope this exercise was good. I chose this colored breathing exercise It's an exercise that I often present to my patients, regardless of what I'm seeing them for. Oftentimes their favorite place is described as their grandma's hogan or their sheep camp. And that's a place that I often think of as well. It's just fond memories that I have there of growing up. I chose to do this exercise beginning from our feet on up to the tops of our head, because that is how we grow. That is how we bless ourselves in ceremonies or while we're doing our prayers. We have that smoke beginning with our feet all the way up into tops of our heads. We're grounded in Mother Earth. Our footprints are unique and connected with Mother Earth, with Father Sky, with the gods and the deities. This exercise is one of my favorite meditations because I believe in it. I really do. It brings me hope. It brings me joy. It helps ground myself even and come back, especially when I'm experiencing anxiety or depression or any of those kinds of symptoms, stress even. So this was my gift to you today. I hope it provided some calmness, some joy, some beautiful memories. Thank you again for having me. I appreciate it. I don't know if I went over, but I'll stop here and hand it on over. Thank you again.
Thanks, Didi. There is no such thing as going over when you're doing wellness. So we really appreciate it. And nothing's going to happen to anyone. If folks have workshops to go to, go. Thanks again to Deb, Byrde, Jessica, and Dawn, and to you, Didi, for such a helpful, moving piece of wellness. You'll have a good rest of the conference, and we'll see you in a bit.
Thank you, Didi.
Thank you. Bye.
Going